country now and getting large crowds, which is a real delight. And when I'm asked why I think the crowds are coming, I think it's very simple. I think partially it's me, but I think the real reason is the people, especially the young people, are sick and tired of what they're getting, and they want some real changes. And there are various reasons. Young people, they know their arithmetic. They know that things like Social Security is not solvent. So when I offer a program, which is a principled program of cutting back here and allowing all young people to get flat out of the Social Security system they want, they rally to it. Once I say, how are you going to save the money? Because I have no intention of throwing people out on the street. We've taught several generations to be very dependent on government programs. So that's not the intent. But in order to tide people over and to work a transition, there's a perfect way to do this, and it's not difficult. And that is, with all this spending overseas, wasted money. We are now spending nearly $1 trillion a year to maintain an empire. We were not meant to be an empire. We were meant to be a republic protecting liberty here at home. We weren't to be the policemen of the world. So, what would we do about Iraq? Is that complicated? I don't think so. Bring the troops home. That's what we ought to do. And we certainly don't need to spread the war. There is a strong sentiment right now in Washington to spread the war into Iran. That makes no sense whatsoever, and it has to end. Even those leading candidates in the other party have all answered the question, when do you think you might get the troops home? Well, not before 2013 at least. We better have them at least till then. There is no real conviction on the parts of anybody in Washington, and yet the conviction with the American people is very strong. 72% of the American people are tired of the war, and they want the war to end. When they brought up the subject of going to war many, many years ago, when it was debated to a degree in 2002, I served on the International Relations Committee, and I insisted that they debate and decide whether or not they should go to war. So I brought up the amendment to substitute the bill and say, look, if you want to go to war, declare war, but you can't go to war just by reneging your responsibilities and delivering it to the president. And I made them vote on it. Nobody voted for it. They didn't want the responsibility. And yet what they told me at the time was that part of the Constitution was anachronistic. We didn't follow it anymore. That is our problem that we face today. There's too many parts of the Constitution that the various groups have just decided not to look at. The Congress doesn't pay attention to some parts. The judicial branch doesn't pay attention. The executive branch doesn't pay attention. And therefore, we don't have much left. We have a good Constitution. We probably have the greatest document, the contract between the people and the government. It wasn't perfect, but it was good. But now there's not a whole lot left. It's very important what the Constitution was written for, to protect our liberties. At the same time, the rule of law is important. If we don't follow all the Constitution, if we want to change it, we have to change the Constitution. We can't ignore it, or we end up in a mess like we have today. The campaign has been going quite well. The numbers are growing. The fundraising, as you heard, did quite well in the third quarter. We raised over $5 million. The interesting part there is that because we do run a frugal campaign, we ended up with more than $5 million in the bank at the end of the third quarter. But the number of supporters are growing. There's a prairie fire going on there. The message is spreading. We do our job, and the best we can to spread the message, but the truth is that people like you have been spreading this message. The message is being spread, and fortunately, the word of mouth now has some little tool called the internet. It's fantastic. And the great part about the crowd, and it's a little dark tonight, but I imagine this crowd is the same, we bring a lot of people together from different categories. I mean, we have a lot of Republicans come to our rallies. We have a lot of people. We have a lot of people who used to be Republicans coming to our rallies. We have a lot of independents coming to our rallies. And we have moderates coming to our rallies. And we even have some Democrats coming to our rallies. And on a rare occasion, we have a few anarchists still show up too. But I've always suspected it was true, but I am firmly convinced that freedom really brings people together. There is no doubt in my mind about it. Because a society that is dedicated to individual freedom and individual choices, it's non-confrontational. It is built on tolerance. It means that we're not judgmental. We don't tell people how to run their lives. It's up to them. As long as they don't hurt people, if they want to hurt themselves, actually there's no way government can protect you from yourself. But this means that freedom of choice is your own, but self-reliance and responsibility is very, very important. Freedom doesn't work if you don't have self-reliance, because you can't act on your own and take risks and then crawl to the government and say, oh, I took this risk, now the government has to take care of it. It doesn't work that way. It means it demands responsibility. It also means that you have freedom of choice how you want to lead your life. You know, it's generally recognized, even though not in a very good manner, that freedom of speech, which you read and write and things, we should be protected. And also it says that in our spiritual lives it should be unmolested by government. Even at times that has been altered by government. But one area where I think our government has slacked off on and is not a very good understanding is if we permit people in free society to put into their minds studying philosophy, and this to me is studying religion, which can be very, very dangerous when you let people have freedom of choice, and we allow people to follow their desires on developing their spiritual life. Why is it that we've accepted this notion that government tells us everything that we can do with our own bodies? I don't understand that. What this has led to is a complex problem and a real hindrance in the medical field. Because what it has done now today, it has allowed our governments to start regulating things like vitamins and nutritional substances, alternative health care, and also it has led to this bizarre thing that compassionate conservatives do and say. They go into states where the state passes a law that says that people that are dying with cancer or AIDS can't even smoke marijuana even if it's healthy. Thing is they shouldn't violate the state laws, and the other sense is people should have freedom of choice. That's what this country is all about. You know, just the other day on television, one of our candidates in the Republican side was flat out asked by an individual. It looked like he was in a wheelchair. It looked like he was suffering from multiple sclerosis, and he said he was benefited by smoking marijuana. And he asked one of the candidates, and he said flat out, he didn't use the words, but his answer essentially said, I'll still arrest you. I don't believe that you're allowed to do that. These kind of problems can always be dealt with by just looking to freedom of choice. You don't have to endorse. See, I endorse freedom of choice for everybody here. But that doesn't mean that I will endorse everything that you do. You know, and that's a big difference. And that is the